So playing the sandbox MMO Stars Reach in early development has got me thinking about what I actually want from an MMO, and if I'm actually a fan of the genre at large. I can count on one hand the number of MMOs that have really gripped me: Anarchy Online, EverQuest, and Star Wars Galaxies. I never got on board with WoW, and after dabbling with Final Fantasy XIV recently, I came away wondering why on earth anyone would find that game enthralling. I was bored to death, to be honest. I'm also not the personality type for MMORPGs, not if we assume an interest in multiplayer gaming stems from an interest in socialising. Although I'm not socially awkward, I'm essentially an introvert, and rarely feel that burning desire for a lot of company. They say one of the best ways to discover if you're an introvert or an extrovert is to consider how you feel after being with a lot of people. Do you feel energized, inspired, and find it difficult to wind down? Then you're an extrovert. On the other hand, if you feel drained and you need some peace and quiet for a while, then you're an introvert. I work from home and my average day consists of conversations with the wife and the dog, although I do feel guilty placing the two together. Conversations with the dog are obviously much more stimulating. Don't worry, she doesn't watch my videos, so jokes like this are a victimless crime. Pleasantries with people I pass while running, the odd conversation with neighbours or shop assistants, and that's about it. Yet since my workday has no longer required a lot of negotiation with co-workers, I have to say I've never felt happier. Leave me alone to get on with things. That's how I work the best. Why would a person like me be interested in MMOs at all? Ostensibly the most social of all gaming genres. To plug a gap in my real life? Maybe I behave differently in games and can be less self-conscious, more gregarious, more entertaining in the online space. But on the contrary, I behave exactly the same in games as I do in reality. I prefer activities like exploring or crafting, and combat when it can be tackled solo, with only the occasional group content that requires a lot of coordination when I need to do that for character progression. My attitude towards others in games is generally, it's great that you're here too, now let me get on with enjoying myself please. This makes no sense, but only because I think the initial assumption is wrong, that the main draw of an MMO is social. When I think back to the things that attracted me to the genre in the early days, it was not the other people necessarily, but the opportunity to exist in a secondary world. I'm a writer, so this involves imagining made-up places, people, and situations. It's fun, but hard work, and the opportunity to be a character in someone else's made-up world, that was exciting to me. They could do the heavy lifting for a change, where I could simply explore. Tolkien, William Gibson, science fiction and fantasy more broadly were the texts that fired my imagination. So it makes sense I might be attracted to games like EverQuest and the cyberpunk universe of Anarchy Online. What could be better than reading about elves? Well, actually being one. What could be more thrilling than William Gibson's Matrix? Being a part of one via a game like Anarchy, decoupling your mind from the physical self and becoming immersed in an alternate reality. Yet for that experience to feel real, it would have to involve other people. I'd experienced something like it with a single player game, but there is always the acknowledgement in single player that the world exists to facilitate the player. If you haven't checked out the excellent no-clip documentary about Fallout 76 and the difficulty of converting single player Fallout to multiplayer, I'd highly recommend it. One of the core sticking points was how to decouple the world from the player, dubbed Atlas, during development, in recognition of the fact that everything revolved around them. The whole experience is a stage for your grand adventure, and once you leave, the world is suspended, pending your return. For an alternate world to feel authentic, it would have to exist whether you're in it or not, and although we don't like to acknowledge this, just like real life, not really need us. The world was turning long before we were born and will hopefully continue spinning for eons after we're gone. The same must be true for secondary worlds. Somewhere in all of that is why I was attracted to MMOs in the first place, so if you could parse that into a single sentence that makes sense to you, that would be great, because I can't do it. So what happened? Why didn't MMOs continue to be my main gaming fix beyond the noughties? I think because gradually they morphed from an experiment in world generation and simulating lived experience into this codified, and although very pretty and immersive at times, treadmill for progression. The point of them became to go up levels, collect items, increase in-game wealth or prestige, and to ultimately beat the game. as far as that's ever possible with a game that doesn't have an end. If my interest was in experiencing a secondary world, then that world being so narrowly defined in terms of simplistic game mechanics left me with a feeling that was similar to the one I had playing single-player games. I'm arguing with myself as I go on, pointing out that my own personality probably didn't help MMOs that came later. You can find that immersive alternate world experience in games by choosing to socialize, by making the concerted effort to roleplay, despite the fact that the number next to your character portrait says 49 and you really should be working on 50. Forget that, I'm just going to hang out in this tavern and play music with my guildies for 6 hours. But for me, that's like sitting at a traffic light that's turned green. Other drivers are blaring their horns or trying to scoot around you, hollering that you're getting things completely wrong. Every signal is screaming that you should push the accelerator, but you're folding your arms saying, no, I don't want to. I'm perfectly happy doing this thing the game clearly doesn't want me to do. Or if it does, it's a side activity. You might get some XP for exploring zones or unlock a new song to play, but these are diversions from the real point, which is to progress. It's not a trend unique to MMOs. There was a time when the point of multiplayer FPS shooters was simply to win a match. There were no guns to unlock or bling to wear. You played in order to have fun, and maybe for bragging rights among your close circle of friends. Nobody could see by looking at you that you'd played hundreds of hours, and what would be the point of them knowing that anyway? What does that matter when the point of playing the game was the moment-to-moment enjoyment? Yet at some point, outward expressions of growth or the amount of time you've invested became the point of playing games in the first place. This is probably another personality thing, but I hate being the center of attention. I never enter a room and let people know who I am and what I think. I'm happiest wearing nondescript clothing and hanging out in a corner, just listening. So there's definitely a disconnect for me with the point of playing most MMOs. Personal progression is a draw, particularly personal progression that has a positive benefit for others. It doesn't enhance anyone else's game experience if you're wearing the coolest armor, so long as it meets the prerequisite gear score. But there's a benefit to having the skills to mine the right materials to make that armor. One of the most rewarding periods in my YouTube career was when I found a way to translate my knowledge of Star Wars Galaxies into useful video tutorials for people. I was getting better at the craft of editing and speaking into a mic, but the result was of benefit to others. And making videos in the first place is only worthwhile if people watch, finding them either informative, entertaining, or engaging in some way. The same with writing. Writing only matters because of the readers. In some sense, I'm looking for these sorts of truths, these lived experiences, to be expressed in the secondary worlds that I inhabit. And that's probably why I'm so picky about what I play. And I'm obviously a bit weird because the continued success of games like WoW clearly indicate a large swathe of people are looking for different things. Not the wrong things, I need to add that, just different to me. But I suppose it's the nature of success that the things that work and draw in the most players become the default. People like levels and gear and a clear direction, and if you want to make money with your game, you're going to look at what's proven to work and try and replicate that. The problem for a person like me is that I'm not interested in a lot of those defaults. I want to be dropped into a world that's open to explore, without a clear progression path, but with options. I'll make up my own mind about what counts as achievement in a place where I'm not necessarily the hero, but I do feel useful. And the good news is that this desire, whilst not becoming the cash cow for MMORPGs, did become the cash cow for other genres. It's why I've sunk hundreds of hours into Minecraft, building a cliffside castle with its own redstone monorail system that no one will ever see apart from me. I did this for the fun of doing it. You get no reward or unlocks for doing so. You're just dwelling in this weird, stylized world, watching the sunset as gentle music plays, wondering what would it be like if this place had its own story and population. And I think that's what I really want from an MMO, an alternate world where I'm just a tiny part of this larger whole, where what I do matters, but not so much in the grand scheme of things. I'd like to know the kinds of things that you value in MMOs, what kind of player you are, what games are sticky for you, and what games you bounce off of. I've been Napier, thank you, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.